So we are now recording, and so we'll do an official and joyful welcome to all of you who are joining us today. As we've been chatting ahead of the official start of this event, it just really warms my heart to see so many of you who we've known over years now as members of this community, and to see so many new folks as well, just joining in this, this really, as someone said in the chat, a celebratory event, an opportunity to celebrate one another, to celebrate Riane and her work, to celebrate Riane's new book, and to celebrate the work that we are collectively doing in the world to advance the shift toward partnership in all aspects of our culture. So let me just share with you where we're heading together today. If I can get my clicker to click, there we go. We want to begin today by just reflecting back to you a little bit about what we learned from you by tuning into your responses of all of you who registered for this event, to the questions we asked you to respond to in your registration form. It's a really lovely portrait of who we are in this community. And you know, I think the fact this is our 17th community gathering is worth noting. We really have an opportunity to celebrate a really kind of long term now and ever growing, ever evolving set of connections between us all. So it's interesting to take a snapshot at least once a year or twice a year of where we are as a group. And so we'll share some of that with you briefly. And then comes our sort of main event, what many of you I know are tuning in to hear today more than anything, besides each other's good company, is to hear about Riane's new book. And so Riane is going to share a little bit, and then we've allotted some time in our gathering today for your questions. So as you have questions, as you listen to Riane speak about the book, be thinking of what you might want to ask, and we'll take those questions out of the chat box or look for raised hands as well. So you can bring those forward whichever way works best for you. Then we have a few brief updates from the Center for Partnership Studies to let you know what's going on, what has been going on since we last gathered, and some things to look forward to that are coming up this year. And then we look forward to hearing your news, and we'll be facilitating some discussion, you know, from those of you who have activities, events, suggestions, anything you want to share. We will be making sure to leave time for that. We'll close with some calls to action, some suggestions of ways you can continue to contribute to the community, and have a closing moment together. So with that as our outline, let me just share with you this snapshot that we received from you as you registered for this event. Clearly, this group is a group of powerful culture changers, and it makes sense that those of us intimately involved in changing the lives of individuals and communities for the better are those who are drawn to the message and the work of partnership. So this group includes educators at multiple levels, authors, media producers, including filmmakers, podcasters, radio casters, broadcasters, um, all kinds of new and more older traditional media. Lots of community advocates and activists, policy shapers, organizational change makers. There are scholars, researchers, and thinkers among us, consultants, coaches, therapists, spiritual leaders, medical practitioners, and a number of providers of direct caring services for vulnerable populations, including women, children, um, hungry people, vulnerable men, um, and many other groups. So thank you all for the work you're doing as culture changers, and we're so pleased that the partnership work infuses your work with greater richness and direction and inspiration. We also know that this is a geographically diverse group. Just in the 100+ folks who registered for this event, there are 14 different countries represented and 24 different states within the United States. So this is a geographically broad community and an international one. We asked you to just give us an estimate of the reach of your partnership work. And out of the 100 or so who responded to the survey, the largest number of you, 18 of you, said that your work for partnership is reaching more than 1,000 people. And many others of you are reaching 500 to 1,000 people. You can see lots of you are reaching 10 to 1,000 people. And what we always emphasize, of course, is that it isn't always about quantity. There are many of you doing therapeutic and healing work with individuals that is deep and long-lasting and powerful and has ripple effects that are immeasurable, right? And others of you are working with much larger numbers and having expansive impact in that way. So it's all good work, and it's exciting that when you add it all up in some kind of loose, aggregated, approximated way, it's clear that just this group who registered for this event are easily reaching 30,000 and probably many more people with your partnership work. And that's really powerful to see. We also asked you how to think about whether you envisioned your involvement with the Center for Partnership Studies to be increasing over time, staying the same, or I think we had the option of decreasing, which no one selected. Lovely, but you'll see that this is a very hopeful and forward-looking group, and we could not be happier with these numbers. That 69 of you said that you really envision your involvement with the work of the center to be increasing over time. Many of you, some of you, 9 of you said staying about the same, and a few just didn't answer that question. But that's exciting to see, and we're really pleased that you are envisioning yourself as ever increasing in your investments in this work and in this community. That's a wonderful positive sign of where we're all heading together. And finally, I wanted to share with you just a little sampler of what you all said when we asked what inspires you about this work or to do this work. And not surprisingly, the very top line that, if we didn't actually do calculations of how many people said which ones, but clearly Riane Eisler herself, hearing her speak, reading her books, getting to know her through whatever pathways have brought you to her, is enormously inspiring to this community. And for many of you, you said that the community itself inspires you, that knowing that there are these leaders around the world that you are part of, all working in this direction, is very inspiring to you. We heard, I think changing our culture from domination to partnership is central to making a world that works for all beings and the earth. That the partnership model is necessary for social institutions to adapt to our changing society. That partnership is the future and that we must move in that direction, and a sense of commitment to partnership as a foundation for our future. Someone shared with us that they're really inspired by the idea of women taking leadership in policy making and bringing with them the values that we've historically considered feminine, of nurturing relationships and trust building, the values which we know are those that actually work and are effective. It's a deeply pragmatic approach. We liked this one as well, that this notion that the growth of human emotional and relational, I'm covering up the maturity and partnership is the key to global peace and prosperity. So this gives a nice flavor, I think, of the shared values, beliefs, vision that this community holds, all emerging from our shared foundations in Riane Eisler's writings and work. So with that as our jumping, with that sort of mirror held up to this community as a whole, let's go right into hearing more about Riane's newest book. It is called Nurturing Our Humanity. Not surprisingly, the early reviews are glowing, and that won't surprise anyone in this group. Jennifer Buffett, the president of the Novo Foundation, says this fearless, beautiful, and very timely book is a radical reminder that humanity's truest nature is oriented toward love, partnership, gender equality, and peace. It is essential and transformative reading for every policymaker, philanthropist, activist, and changemaker interested in a more just, balanced, and peaceful world. And of course, that includes all of us here. Just a couple details about the book. The full title, which is hard to read in our little images, is Nurturing Our Humanity: How Domination and Partnership Shape Our Brains, Lives, and Future. The book is co-authored by Riane and her co-author Douglas Fry. It's published by Oxford University Press, and shipping begins next week, a week from today. So you can pre-order your copy at a discount directly from the publisher. And I know Anne will be sharing in the chat, and then also in our follow-up email after this event, links for those of you. Many of you shared in the chat that you've already ordered yours, which is great. But if you haven't yet ordered your copy, we'll get you the links you need to do that. I think, yeah, let's go back to here. So I'm going to stop sharing these slides so we can see Riane's lovely face much more fully and largely on your screens, and invite Riane to tell us about this new book.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. First of all, welcome, everyone. You know, this is so meaningful to me. These community meetings where I get a chance to really be with so many of you, of our partnership community, and to hear that, yes, that you are using this work, that you are committed to this work. I just can't tell you how much that means to me, so thank you. And I also want to thank both Sarah and Anne, well, for making these meetings possible. They're both wonderful. And so are all of you. So let me tell you a little bit about this new book about nurturing our humanity. I've been working on this book for 10 years. You know, it takes me a long time to write my books. And this book goes deeper to some of the most critical issues facing humanity. Um, and it combines my work, the study of relational dynamics and its findings about these two underlying social categories, the partnership system and the domination system, which, unlike conventional categories, don't leave out or marginalize the majority of humanity, women and children. It combines that with with a lot of new findings from both the biological and social sciences, but specifically with two areas. One is the area of neuroscience. And as you saw in the subtitle, which is How Domination and Partnership Shape Our Brains, Lives, and Future, the last decades have been extraordinarily fruitful in the work, in the findings from neuroscience about something basic, something fundamental, which is the interaction of what children experience and observe, and what all of us, as we get older, experience and observe, with nothing less than how our brains develop. And that is one of the key themes, and it explains a lot of things, all the way from some of the things that we're trying to leave behind as we hear so much about healing ourselves, to the election of Trump, to to our past. And this brings me really also to the present and future, of course, to the second major component of this book, which is that about 3 years ago, I invited the noted anthropologist Douglas Fry to be my co-author. And there was a reason for that, because Doug is one of the world's greatest experts on foraging societies. And his work and the work of his colleagues absolutely debunks the conventional story that you're all, I'm sure, familiar with about these so-called evolutionary imperatives, right, that make rape and war, domination systems basically inevitable. You know, that's just what we carry in our genes, right? That's what evolution demands, when the reality is that we humans lived in foraging societies, which are, gathering, hunting societies for millennia. Many, many more thousands of years than the short period of domination systems. And Doug calls these societies the original partnership societies. So we're not only learning from neuroscience that the human default is not domination, violence, cruelty, that the default actually is what makes us truly human, our capacities for consciousness, caring, creativity, our enormous need for caring connection. And we know this now from neuroscience, nothing less, the quote hard science. Number two, that so many of the stories that we have been told, starting with the story of our evolution, are simply not true. As Doug puts it, they ignore the evidence that we have today. There's so much more I could tell you about this book, but I want you all to read it, to use it, and to really make policymakers and opinion makers and the media aware of this book. It's a very rich book, but basically it's a primer. It's a primer for systems literacy, which we must have to deal with this very complex time that we're living in, this new technological era, and frankly, which we must have, as you know, to get past these simplistic categories like right, left, religious, secular, Eastern, Western, Northern, Southern. We know that repressive, authoritarian, violent societies have existed in all these categories. And if we are to answer the most basic question for our future, which is the question that nurturing our humanity really addresses, which is what kind of society, including what kind of family, economic, political, religious, etc. system do we need in order to, yes, nurture our humanity, to bring out the best in us rather than the worst in us, because certainly we also have capacities for cruelty and lack of consciousness and violence, but that's not the point. The point is what makes us human, and what kind of society can we build and must we build, starting in what's ignored in the conventional analysis: childhood, gender relations, family relations, and how that relates to politics, to economics. Anyway, I'm going to stop because I want to hear from you. But as you can tell, I'm really very excited about this new book. And I hope that I will hear from how every one of you is using it to really change our worldview, because that's where it has to start. Daniela Meadows, who is a very noted futurist, wrote that the most important thing that we have to change, which is where it all starts, is the world view. So onward.
So we do have a few questions already coming in the chat. First is from Melissa Penn, who's asking, will there be a workbook coming out? She says, yes, I know the book's not even out, but this new book needs to be taught.
I love this. Yes, we will be working on a workbook, and I would like to invite you, our members of our community, to contribute to this workbook, to really, when you read this book, and it's a very rich book, because there's so many threads to human society, to human beings, really, to keep in mind just what you would like that workbook to address. So thank you so much, Melissa. And by the way, for those of you who are interested, I think that teaching this, using this, having Oxford University Press be the publisher is a big plus. And I really want to see those of you who are teachers, who are connected with universities, high schools, see that we can develop not only a workbook for this, but curricula based on this book.
And just to piggyback on that, Ruth Mary Hall, who met you at the Parliament of World Religions last year, has several suggestions and question. Suggestion: we should perhaps send a book to everyone in Congress, and that kind of echoes something we've all been thinking, and we're gonna think of asking you all to do. But she's also suggesting, or asking, will you do a TED Talk? Will there be a speaking tour? She's eager to know where she can hear you speak more, and in ways that are shareable with others about this new book.
I'm not doing a book tour, and publishers today are finding that people are not showing up. It's called the social media instead of being there in person. They're not showing up at book signings, which is sad. And it's especially sad for this endangered species, which are the independent bookstores, the few that still remain. But I would love to do a TED Talk. And if anybody has connections with the TED organization to do a national TED Talk, I would really like to do that. In the meantime, though, I am speaking at a number of events. One of them is a private event. It's an anniversary of the 75th anniversary of the Bretton Woods um, um, meeting, which established the current financial institutions, including the IMF and the World Bank. And I'm happy to say that they are very enthusiastic about this book and have purchased 250 copies to give to all of the people coming. And I'm also in the fall speaking at the Omega Institute at the Women's Leadership Conference, and that is open to the public. And I think that there are scholarships, and I think the deadline for the scholarships hasn't passed yet. But I am open to other invitations to speak at places where I can really reach the people who will make a difference. And I'm going to try to make my answers shorter.
No, this is perfect. Marta is wondering if there are plans to translate the book into Spanish.
Well, this really depends on whether there's an offer to Oxford University Press from a Spanish publisher. If you know a publisher, Marta, who you think would be a good publisher and would be interested, please let me know and I'll alert the people at Oxford.
Great. Joseph is asking if we're to move from me too to we too, what would be the key attributes of this transition?
My goodness, but that's such a wonderful, catchy phrase. We too. Thank you, Joseph. I think that that could be a motto for the partnership movement. We too. So what was the question again? I'm sorry, I'm so great.
I think that my understanding of the question is around connecting women and men in the movement to end sexual entitlement, domestic violence, abuse and harassment of women, and really to advance a partnership, how to bring women and men together in the movement to advance a partnership future.
Well, again, this book, Nurturing Our Humanity, really shows how important it is for both women and men to shift to a partnership model in all relations. But unlike so much of the contemporary conversation, which doesn't even address gender, which is so strange, you know, I learned a lot in doing the research for this book. And I also had some aha moments, like why really, when socialization for gender roles, you know, how boys are brought up, how girls are brought up, is so central to our sense of identity, nothing less, to our sense of what it means to be human. Why is it only that it's only 50 to 60 years ago, out of 700 years of so-called humanities and science in the West, that women's studies, men's studies, gender studies finally entered the academy. And of course, it's because of the domination worldview, of these rigid gender stereotypes, which thankfully both women and men are trying to leave behind. And the book deals a great deal with that because it's so basic, it's so fundamental, because we do have a gender system of values that, as many of you know from earlier books I've already written about, and how it shapes our economic values, what we think should be given value. So yes, the book is a very good tool for what you want.
Mhm. There's a contribution in the chat that is not framed exactly as a question, but I think it would be lovely to have you speak a little bit to it, which is the notion that the language of partnership and domination gives us a platform that is more inclusive than speaking about patriarchy versus certainly matriarchy, or patriarchy versus anything else. And so if you could speak a little bit about that language and its importance in
Yes.
moving to a we too kind of place.
Well, I'm so glad that that observation, of course,
And
goes
that was
right.
Jed Diamond, I should say,
Oh,
was that.
Jed.
Yeah.
Hi, Jed. Nice to hear from you, and nice that you're here. I'm afraid that the terms matriarchy and patriarchy actually are two sides of a domination coin. Yes, I know that many people are using matriarchy really in a partnership sense, but semantically, uh, it's either ruled by mothers or ruled by fathers, ruled by women or ruled by men. And what we really need is, of course, partnership. So language, this is why using terms like the domination system and the partnership system is so important, and why our language, by the way, has not given us the words. I mean, I coined, as you, from some of you know, the term hierarchy of actualization as contrasted to hierarchy of domination, because power can be used not just as power over, but as power to and power with. Nothing wrong with power, but it's very different in the context of a partnership or domination system. So, but it's very hard. People, to get people out of their comfort zones, out of the language. So I'm counting on you, on all of you, to really make that point. If we want to change our cultures and our lives, we really have to understand that, as linguistic psychologists tell us, that the words that are available in a language channel our thinking and trap us, like matriarchy and patriarchy do, in a certain worldview where the only alternatives are you either dominate or you're dominated. And I promised I'd make these answers short, but your questions are so rich. What can I say?
Stephen Brandt would like to know if Oxford Press has a budget for sending copies to cultural thought leaders. And in particular, he's imagining wanting a copy to go to Ronan Farrow, who is the reporter who helped launch the Me Too movement by reporting on the Weinstein, uh, uh, whatever we want to call it, and the domination attitude in general of high level executives.
And I'm afraid the answer is no. Uh, so again, I am going to ask you to do this. Send copies of this book to the thought leaders, to the media, to the people that you think can really use it, and tell them why you're sending it to them. That this is really as I said, not only a tool for systems literacy, but a tool for knowing just what we have to do in order to build a better future. And this is critical. I don't have to tell you, between the climate change. I mean, for example, one of the findings from neuroscience, and again, it goes back to early childhood, is that actually people who are brought up in rigid domination settings, their brain, the a certain section of the brain, I won't bore you with the name, but it's all in the book, of course, really doesn't function to be able to switch when things change. And so they're in climate change denial. because some bully, then that's the other thing, having been used to a bully way of being brought up, and being told that they have to love that bully, they're very susceptible to following a bully and even loving that bully. I mean, these are dynamics we have to understand and change.
Mhm. I want to thank Melissa for putting in the chat the address we can all write to support to the National TED Talk people. So if you would like to jump on that movement, thank you for Melissa for giving us the directions for that. I think let's take one more real sort of meaty question, because it's we all can't hear it enough, and that's from Lauren, who is would like for you to just take another minute or two and talk more about this idea of hierarchies of actualization and how that fits into what you mean by it and how it fits into this notion of nurturing our humanity.
And I imagine that's Lauren Hatvani.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't say her last name. It is.
Delighted that you're here. And I think there are other members of your clan that are here too. And I'm just so happy that you're with us. Yes, as I said, the language traps us. Look, every society, whether it's partnership oriented or domination oriented, and it's always a matter of degree, there's a continuum. In this book, we introduce the biocultural partnership domination lens. Biocultural, because it shows the relationship between culture and biology. But we haven't had words. So hierarchy, every society needs parents, needs teachers, needs managers, needs leaders. So to say that everything is going to be completely flat simply isn't realistic. But how is this hierarchy structured? Does responsibility, accountability, a benefit only flow from the bottom up, or does it also flow from the top down? That's essential. I mean, the entire, speaking of the Me Too movement, we're talking about accountability, we're talking about responsibility, we're talking about caring, really. And of course, with our gender system of values that we've inherited, which devalues anything considered, quote, feminine, such as caring, in both women and men. Men are called sissies, right? If, weak sisters, if they're not macho, we really have to pay attention to our language. And so the hierarchies of actualization are an attempt to say, wait a minute, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's redefine how power is conceptualized and how it's exercised. And as you know, it's very different in a partnership or domination-oriented cultural, family, political, economic, etc. setting.
Mm-hmm. Well, we, of course, could go on. There's never enough time. But I think this gives you all a really good flavor of some of the core concepts and how this new book is bringing together some new research to really evolve and put forward even more clearly and passionately these core themes that have been running through Riane's work from the Chalice and the Blade, and even before that on. And thank you all for all of your other suggestions in the chat for other people who should have the book, and for ways to get it to them. It kind of takes us, I think, to our, and of course, thank you so much, Riane, for taking the time to talk with us all about what we can expect and sort of get us even more excited for what's coming next week. I want to go back to our slides and take us to, we had a short set of suggestions for ways you can help participate in, be part of our book launch. And you all are right there with us, of course, as you always are, to gift copies to other people, including policymakers, cultural shapers, politicians, reporters like Pharaoh and others. Um, you know, and you have added to this list, write reviews of the book for your newsletters or audiences that you reach. You've also added, support the notion of having a TED Talk. And so there are, and other ideas, C-SPAN and others that you've suggested in the chat. So thank you so much for already enriching and adding to this list. You might just
And
also,
I want to interrupt for a
yes,
moment.
please.
Reviews are very important. And if you have connections with journals, big and small, with publications, if you can write a review, if you can get others to write a review, that is so important. So thank you so much, because we should have had that absolutely in our list.
Many of you are educators, but you also may know educators at university, high school level, where you might suggest the book to them and as a resource to their for their curriculum as well, so that again expands the reach of these ideas. And as we talked about, in the chat, and as Riane said, to start with reading it yourself, but inviting other people, friends, colleagues, etc., to read it along with you. And even as soon as our follow-up email from this session, our gathering today, Riane and Anne worked together on a preliminary set of discussion questions to use with the book. And as we talked about, we'll be working toward an ever more sort of robust set of materials that you can use to guide other people's reading and thinking about the book and discussion of the
I'll
topics in the
interrupt
book.
again, if I may.
Please.
I just saw that Liam, and thank you so much, Liam. I'm delighted you joined us. Amazon reviews. That's so easy. Barnes and Noble, but Amazon, I'm saying you can do it in many other platforms, but Amazon is essential. So please write Amazon reviews. That's very great. Thank you.
And Melissa has the suggestion to set a buy the book day so that lots of people buy the book on the same day, which moves it up on the bestseller lists, et cetera, and creates a wave. So all of you are so good at knowing how these systems work and how we can work them to promote this really important piece of work.
Can I just add something real quick, Sarah? I just noticed from somebody in the chat mentioned that the e-book version is available on Amazon now, which is pretty great. It wasn't there a few weeks ago, and that it looks like you could pre-order it as an ebook and get that on July 5th. But if you are connected to social media, particularly Instagram, it's always great to, create a little picture with that link to the ebook and get that onto social media, because it's such a quick, easy thing to download the ebook and get that out into the world that way.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So thank you all for your great questions and suggestions and for being part of the movement of this book out into the world. We want to share with you, we really want to get to what you all are doing and hear your voices. Whoop.
Sorry, I thought I turned it off.
That's just fine. Let's share with you, we just have, I think, maybe 5 quick updates that we wanted to make you all aware of what's going on in our small but mighty center. The first is that we have a new website for you all to visit. It's at centerforpartnership.org. What this site does is that it is now, you may know if you've been following with us for some time, that we have historically had multiple websites. There was a website for the Caring Economy campaign, for the Spiritual Alliance to Stop Intimate Violence, and a separate one for the center. Now there is one site that holds all of that together. So there's a single place to send people for information, resources, updates from the center. So in the process of combining those sites, we worked very hard to streamline the content, to sharpen the content, to focus the content, and to really put it forward in ways that are more easily accessible to users. So you'll let us know how we did in that quest. A couple highlights I wanted to point out for you as you go and visit. One is that there is an extensive section of the site which is still at the moment called "What Can I Do?" That tab may be renamed shortly, but what we've done is create a set of pages where you can find yourself either by the role that you play as a parent, as a caregiver, as a policymaker, as a media producer, as a citizen activist. So you can find sort of yourself there and go to that page and immediately access a set of resources that are specific to that role that you play as a partnership change agent. Then there's a second list by issue. So you can also go to pages based on topics and themes that you care about. So there are pages, again, where you then find resources that we've sort of curated specifically for that issue or that role, depending on what kind of page you're on. So hopefully that begins to make the process of finding resources specific to your needs that much easier and quicker. The other thing I want to point out is what we're calling the connect pages. There's a sort of two-tiered menu, and in the upper menu there's an option to click on the word connect, and there we have for the first time a real place to really feature the work that you all are doing as partnership leaders. And so that's really an exciting, I think, big advance in terms of what this new website offers. There are profiles of partnership leaders, some of whom are probably here in this group today. There are invitations to connect locally with folks. And we envision that being an area of lots of growth and development over the coming months. So check that out. And know that refinements are ongoing. And there's, in fact, within another month, the homepage will look very different. There are other pages that will still be changing as we work with Liam, who's here today, and with Francis, who's here today. And Anne Amberg has been just a mighty force in pulling together pretty much every single page on this website has been touched by her hands. And so it's all, as what a good website should be, it's all ongoing and evolving. But I think quite a bit evolved from, if you haven't visited us for a while, please enjoy. We also have an exciting announcement about a name change for the Center for Partnership Studies. It's not exactly clear when the date, when there's no particular launch date yet for this, but we're moving in the direction of a name change to the Center for Partnership Systems. And this is just a mock-up of our current logo with the new words in it. It could be that the logo change happens as well. But our thinking behind this, and Riane, please share more if there's more you'd like to say about this, but the thinking is that the notion of Center for Partnership Systems is both more active and more outcomes oriented than just the notion of study, that it really conveys the centrality of system thinking to our work, and that it really keeps the focus on systemic cultural transformation as being the object of our work rather than studies themselves. Anything you want to add to that, Riane?
Well, it was a tough decision, is what I want to add. But I think, and we all, really, Francis and Liam have been very instrumental in thinking this through. But I think that while certainly we want, obviously, to change education, studies, right, and need to, the reality is that what we are focused on is shifting to a partnership system. And as you know, I think you've summed it up very well, Sarah. Um, and I really hope that it will resonate. I'm looking at some of the comments that people are saying that it will resonate with many people. I hope it will. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you all for sharing your responses to it. It's heartening to see that it really is striking you in a positive way. For the most part, is what we're seeing, and that's wonderful confirmation that we're on the right track. What else? I also wanted to share with you that, most of you are aware that the Center for Partnership Systems is a very small organization, and one in which the real way we operate often is that everybody is pitching in on lots of things at all times, which is kind of the hallmark of a small organization. And we haven't worried so much over time about titles for that reason. But in the recent years, really, it's become clear that Anne Amberg is doing more for us and for all of you than what her previous title of, which was assistant director, I think, of leadership and learning that she has taken on bodies of work that so far exceeded what we were calling her that it was really time to honor her contributions to the center with a title change, and that really reflects the enormous value that she's bringing to the work of connecting all of you to one another, connecting you to us, communicating with you about what's going on in the form of the wonderful newsletter that she develops, all the emails she responds to, and really in the realm of leadership and learning programs, the both strategic, creative, and developmental work that she puts into making our webinars happen, making our courses better. And so we just wanted to take a moment to really announce this to all of you who have are in direct communication with Anne, and give you an opportunity to congratulate her along with us. So thank you, Anne, for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Riane. And I love the flowers that you have on these slides. That they're so lovely.
It's the bouquet I would buy for you if we were doing this in person.
Thank you. And I just want to say very briefly that I'm so honored to continue to work with our leadership community, which actually spans over 30 countries. It's just amazing. And as people become more aware of systems literacy and what they can do as partnership leaders, there's so many ways to collaborate and connect. So I'm really in the very honored position of continuing to support you all and empower you to create your own partnership projects, to get together and do your own events, create your own curriculum. And that's what we are here for, is to empower each of you to become your own little powerhouse of partnership leadership, basically. And because one person can't ever do it all, but we can be there for you and encourage you to connect with each other and make all these things happen. So the other thing that the new title is really going to support our community and helping me to connect with new partner organizations that we can do webinars with, that we can collaborate together with systems literacy, and also to be able to show funders, potential funders and potential granting organizations how how effective the work we are is actually, how effective it is and how it's taking off. And so these new partnerships are really important as we go into the future.
And I also want to join Sarah in congratulating you, Anne, and thanking you.
Thank you, Riane.
And those of you there are a couple people on the phone who aren't seeing the slide, so I'll just let you know that Anne's new title is Director of Community Outreach and Engagement and Co-Director of Leadership and Learning Programs. So, and Donna's now putting Powerhouse of Partnership Leadership on her business card, which I think is great. So thanks, it's a great phrase. And just a final bit of news from us, some things to watch for on the horizon. We are in the planning stages of our next webinar. It will be with a group called Relationship First, which has a long-standing relationship with Riane, and that it will be coming up in early September on the 12th.
And I'm really excited about
yeah, please say more,
I
Riane.
want to tell you, because they are doing partnership process and have been doing it for years. And it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. So it really focuses on intimate and family relationships primarily, Riane, is that right?
Well, they're branching out, which I love, to all relationships.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, our last webinar with the quantum people was basically about how can you negotiate from a partnership rather than a domination perspective. So you might want to, all of our webinars are recorded, including this one. So you might want to check it out and tell others.
Yeah. Another partnership we're engaged in is with the Omega Institute, who are starting up a whole program in online learning that goes beyond what they've done before in terms of just sharing webinars and sharing content that's sort of replays of lectures, for example. They're now investing in really developing fully fledged self-guided online courses, and Riane and I are working with them to develop a new online course, one of the first in their new catalog, which will be called Building a Partnership World, Beyond Inequality, Sexual Entitlement, and Domestic Violence. And we're in the process of developing a series of 5 modules that will add up to that course. So watch for that launching this fall. And then our existing online course called Changing Our Story, Changing Our Lives, which some of you are graduates of, is also on track to launch this fall as an online course through our own Center for Partnership Studies catalog. So watch for both of those, and we'll there'll be lots of announcements to pay attention to as these additional learning opportunities come online. So that's what we wanted to share with you, and I just want to echo what is being said in the chat box right now for people on the phone, which is in a follow-up email that you'll get very quickly after today's gathering. We will provide you with the links to any, as we have them, to relevant information that we're sharing today, and lots of other materials, including the replay of this webinar, links to the chat, links to the slides that we're showing. So we'll make sure you have access to all these materials right after the gathering today. I want to hand it over to our Director for Community Engagement and Outreach, Anne Amberg, and let you take it from here, Anne, as we move into really an opportunity to hear from at least some of you, and we won't be able to hear from everyone, but at least some of you about the work that you're doing to inspire all of us.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'm so glad that we have, it looks like about at least 20 minutes or so here. Is that right, Sarah, or 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think we have a good 20 to 25 minutes
Great.
to
Okay.
really hear what people are up to.
Fantastic. And there's so many people that have joined us. And I know, Jen Taylor, you're with us. I think you're with us still. Would you feel comfortably? Is it possible, sir, for them to unmute themselves? Are you there, Jen? Would you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about your university philosophy curriculum? Oh, no, I can't hear you.
Unmute myself.
Oh, there you are.
Hello?
Hi, Jen.
Hello.
So glad you're on.
Oh, it's just so exciting. What a group of people to be sharing a Friday afternoon with. And I feel really humbled. I feel electrified. Anyway, I have a kind of funny story. Riane knows it a little bit, and maybe you too, Anne, that I in 94 walked away from, academia and really haven't landed back at it until now. So I'm going back to school in the fall. And at any rate, I have been teaching sort of through a back door. My partner is a philosophy professor. And so I started about 8 years ago guest teaching, one class a week. And 3 years ago, it just expanded into a 4-class lecture series. And I like to call it Dominator Problems and Partnership Solutions.
Ah, that's nice.
And I find that the students tend to be, because we're really, we start off with, I call the first lecture, Patriarchy, Bonobos, and the Sociology of Partnership Societies. And I love starting off with bonobos, hitting them with the whole cosmic timeline, because it's so humbling when we find out, 4.5 billion years of our planet's life and 300,000 of humans' existence on it is really something that so many people just don't, it's a hard timeline to grasp. So I really like to get that up on the board and hone it in. And so these are things that in general, I think the majority of humans are shut down to. And you can see in the students in the beginning, they're very shut down, but they start to wake up because the partnership lens offers a viable hope that they're missing. And without it, I think it's too hard for most humans to look at this stuff. So teaching it is incredibly gratifying. And the second lecture series is Gender Roles and Sexual Stereotypes, the Iconography of Partnership versus Dominator Cultures. And I promise you, I'm very calm in my lectures, but this group has me so excited, so I'm a little nervous actually right now. And then my third lecture is called Whose Lives Matter? Citizenship in the Polis since Aristotle. And I like to, dive right into Aristotle and really read his words out loud to the students, and they do struggle with the language, so we really have to go over it. And so this evolution of citizenship and how it was sort of delimited from the beginning, in the beginning of the dominator system times, is solidified with Aristotle and the legacy of that to this day. And so that was kind of the philosophy that I was ensconced in as an undergrad, and why I didn't choose to go on, because I was really immersed with very deadening philosophical texts, one after the other. And I found myself the most enlivened by the pre-Socratics. And I know now, after, the sort of revelation of Riane's Chalice and the Blade, I was attracted to the pre-Socratics because they held a resonance for what had just recently been lost. So they were our key. And so I had so many, I was in love with Hesiod. I loved reading the Greek tragedies, Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. All these are just, when you read them, they hold keys to what was lost. That all of these authors of long ago were embedding our lost history for us to uncover. And for me, the real thrill of the first read of The Chalice and the Blade was that, Riane, I think you hit everything. I haven't found one thing that you missed in terms of analyzing our pre-classical to classical inheritance and in the Western Hemisphere. So anyway, I think my fourth lecture is can be a little quicker than that. I go over Standing Rock, the water protectors issue, and indigenous justice, and it's a fun time.
Jim, this is fabulous what you're doing, and I would love to have you write about it for our interdisciplinary Journal of Partnership Studies. Please.
Okay, I will get right on that.
Get right on that, because it's so important. And sharing your curriculum, sharing this, it's really a module that you have developed that could be inserted in a sociology class, in a political science class, in a humanities, so-called humanities, leaves out leaves out most of humanity, women and children. But there you have it. I think that it would be fabulous.
Okay. Yeah.
And thank you and bless you.
Thank you, bless you again.
Thank you so much, Jen. I was so excited when you sent me your response in the email about your teaching. Did you say that it's University of Connecticut at Hartford?
Yes.
But there's a couple others you're going to be teaching at soon as well, right?
Yes, I'm very excited. I'll be teaching this at Wesleyan next semester. And the other place I've been teaching is at Middlesex Community College. So it will be all three next fall.
That's great.
I did 10 years ago pursue possibly doing a master's at Wesleyan. And I got into an immediate back and forth with the director of the graduate program herself, who denied any of the scholarship for our ancient, prehistory from Maria Gumbatas's perspective. And so she's now been, thoroughly debunked. So it's just kind of exciting that we can sneak that into Wesleyan now.
Yeah, the times are changing, and it's really interesting how many new opportunities are opening up now for, teaching in all these different areas. And I will be I'm planning to write a blog post about your work, Jen, and I'll be in touch with you about that in a couple of weeks. So that's exciting. And thank you so much for sharing your beautiful work there. And the next person I just want to call on is, if you're still here, is Mario. Are you with us, Mario? Looks like you might still. There you are.
Hi there. Thank you. Yes, I'm here, and I'm really enjoying this session, as all other webinars you've had. It's very inspiring, as well as educational.
But Mario, I'm just curious if you had a chance on. I'll just finish. I have a little bit of.
I've just muted Mario while you talk, Anne, and then, because I think we're getting feedback through his system, and then once you get a chance to ask your question, I'll unmute him again.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I was wondering about that. Yeah, Mario, I was just kind of curious if you had connected with Promundo when you were in Washington, D.C. I wasn't sure if that, or maybe you're still there. And and also I know that you've been really involved with working in the area of gender equity and looking at new values for masculinity and that kind of work. And could you say just a tiny bit about that? I'll go ahead and mute here.
And I'd love to know what you're doing, Mario.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, I was able to meet with Promundo in Washington, D.C. It was a very brief meeting. But very inspirational in that I saw that they're working on fathership, which is kind of the other side of the coin of, our developing, the feminist aspects, of the values that are dismissed by our domination society. Really more than that, I feel that I would really like to share the work I've been doing. And since in the previous discussion, we were just talking about indigenous justice. I'd like to share a little bit about my work with the Zapatista communities and before coming to Washington, D.C., which I came to attend the Poor People's Campaign, which again is, in a sense, a tremendous partnership project of giving voice to the voiceless, to the people who have been neglected and marginalized in this society. 140 million people who live in poverty in the United States, many of which are women, who, because they spend their lives caring, are not building up their financial equity in the system and end up poor and impoverished in old age. But the model of the Zapatistas, I would just like to come back to, is a very great example of a system or a society. They have actually created an alternative reality in Mexico, in southern Mexico, where they have created an autonomous society in which they govern themselves independent of state and federal laws based on their traditional culture. Now that obviously has a few drawbacks, considering the machista, male-dominated culture of Mexico and lots of Spanish and Latin American countries, and which I experienced growing up in my own family. But they have passed what's called the Revolutionary Law of Women way back in the 1990s when they were getting going. And I don't know if many of you know that they launched a indigenous woman, a healer, a non-Zapatista, as a candidate for president of Mexico, a project that was without precedent in the history of Mexico. So there's just so many things that are going on in the world that, to me, tie in with the work that we're doing here through the partnership studies. So I'm honored to be a part of this, and I'm inspired. And I would really be happy to answer any questions people have offline or via email after this. I don't want to take too much time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate here.
Thank you. I want you to know that Doug, my co-author of Nurturing Our Humanity, did his field work with the Zapotec. And he really, I think that this will be of great interest to you because, of course, as you pointed out, at least part of that community is very partnership oriented, as you've noted. I'd love to also invite you, in fact, I want to invite all of you to really our next issue of the Interdisciplinary Journal of Partnership Studies is on child development, nurturing our humanity. And I'd love to and you don't have to only focus on that. I mean, we have other issues as well. But I'd love to have you do something on the Zapatistas. I think that would be really great. So thank you so much, Mario.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. I just am really great to hear your voice. And for those of you that are seeing the slide on the computer, you can see Mario's face there on the bottom row, second from the left. And I know that you're really, really active in some of the areas that we aren't always aware of at CPS, what's happening there. And the other thing I want to say too is that I believe, Mario, that you are a Spanish speaker, and I know that you've offered in the past to translate for us. So there's at least 3 or 4 people in today's session that have mentioned that they would like to support translation of some of CPS's work into Spanish, and that's really a great resource for us. So thank you. And is there anybody else, we have just a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes left, if you want to raise your hand, or Sarah, do you see a specific question? I'm not looking at the chat at the moment.
I don't see a question. I do think that is it June?
June Holte?
June Holte was sharing about her work, and I think it's way back up here. Yeah, and I would love to invite June. I mean, it's in the chat box, but we also have people on the phone who aren't able to see that. June, if you're open to it, I'm going to unmute you, and we'd love to hear a little bit in your own word. Well, it chat's your words too, but in your voice about the work that you're involved in. Let's see if we can hear from you.
Wow, thank you. I'm honored. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. That's right in the very center of the United States for people from not in the U.S. And I've been an active volunteer with the Pachamama Alliance for 12 years, and that's how I met and co-facilitated with Ann Omberg. And so the work I'm doing is related to the mission of the Pachamama Alliance Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream Symposium. The mission is to bring forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on Earth. We have a team of people in Kansas City who are currently focusing on the climate crisis as a portal to bring people into a larger curriculum. You know, like anything, we all have a point of entry, and when we start, I really enjoyed what Jen said about how people shut down when they can't even face it, when they don't have a frame of reference that enables them to look at the pain of what's around us. And so we've been working on envisioning how to use the climate crisis as a pathway for people to discover a whole world of new paradigms that are emerging at this time, and including Riane Eisler's work and the Partnership Way, and including some of Marshall Rosenberg's work in nonviolent communication, and including some of the work that's being done on new economics and the Next System Project and other. You know, we've got this curriculum of probably 15 different bodies of knowledge that we're envisioning to be able to share with people as they enter through the portal of the climate crisis. And Joanna Macy's work is also centrally featured. And we're working on, looking at how to sequence things and so forth and so on. And what I said in the chat is that we just a couple weeks ago are going back to the drawing board to re-envision everything we're doing with partnership and non-hierarchy centrally being our modus operandi, and that including more voices in the collaborative, creative process of re-envisioning what we're doing and so forth and so on. And so the timing of this book and the timing of this this particular gathering couldn't be more beautiful for what we're doing. We're having a big visioning session on Sunday, and intending to bring the Partnership Way into the foreground. And that's all I'll say right now.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And yes, climate change is a very excellent way of engaging people, especially young people. And of course, for us to really address that problem, there has to be the cultural change.
I can't quite hear you. I don't know about anybody else, Riane, but I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Has anybody had trouble hearing me?
That's better now, Riane, if you're closer to the...
Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, you should have told me earlier. Have I been talking to myself?
No. It just as you move away from the mic, which you had sat back to listen.
Yeah,
it's better when you sit forward.
Yeah, a little bit. No, the point is that the quote conquest of nature is built into the domination system, and really, without this change in worldview, you just can't tack on harmony with nature to a fundamentally imbalanced system, starting with what children learn in families, in schools, etc. So I'm so glad that you're doing this. And as we approach the end of the hour rapidly, I just want to say how much I have really valued and enjoyed what you have been sharing here, both in the chat, all of you, and in the Jen's and Mario's, and now your presentation also. It's so wonderful to really have the opportunity to learn what you're doing. And I want to thank you all and bless you all.
Well, and I'll just close with a few ideas for you, if I can get my clicker to click, just to kind of summarize some of the suggestions that we've been offering, and many of you have had many others in the chat, but ways to really kind of think about channeling the I forgot what Jen said, but channeling that crackling energy that you're feeling of inspiration and connection into action. One of the great ways to do that is to write. You may have noticed in our newsletter that Anne has been incorporating more and more voices from around the community in terms of blog posts and articles that you write around a theme for a particular newsletter. So watch for those calls from Anne for contributions. I know in September, we'll be doing a newsletter around the themes that relate to the Relationship First webinar. And so if you are somebody who's working in the domain of relationships, that would be an excellent occasion for you to share some writing with us. There's also, as Riane has mentioned, the interdisciplinary journal for partnership studies, we can make sure you get a link to the website where you can read about the submission parameters for that. But many of you would be just perfect people to be sharing what your work, how your work relates to the larger movement of partnership studies. So think about submitting an article there. There are both, it is a scholarly peer-reviewed journal, but there are different segments within the journal. So there are areas that are where you can submit stories that are more anecdotal, more in a storytelling frame. There's also artwork that appears as the cover of each issue. So think about ways that you might contribute to the journal, and crafting op-eds, articles, doing your podcast, doing your radio show, all the things that so many of you are already doing, where you keep the language of partnership and the focus on these ways of this lens foregrounded in your work over time. We also, again, just want to remind you around connection to perhaps invite others to read Nurturing Our Humanity together with you. Make it an occasion for dialogue and for expanding your circles that you reach of folks who are tuned in. Educate within your community, and really think about other connections that we might be forging with other organizations and groups. We've partnered with Next Systems. We've partnered with Promundo for a webinar. We've partnered with so many others. And if you have ideas for us about other organizations and groups with whom we ought to be partnering around offerings or work, that is always exciting to hear from you. And then finally, some of you already are caring sustainers, and of course, all the work you're doing in the world as leaders of partnership is a massive contribution, not only to the center, but of course to the world. But if you have the means, it is so important that we be able to continue our work with funds to do so. And there are ways you can become through that donate link, you can opt to become a caring sustainer with a regular subscription type contribution to the center's work. And we...
I just wanted to add, you know, if you can give even $5, $10, $20 a month, it is so important for us because, well, we are living in a monetized world. So for us to do what we do and to support what you do, it requires contributions. So, and I also wanted to say something about the interdisciplinary journal. We have a community section, community action, community contribution. So practitioners are very much like you, as well as educators, you know, like Jen, scholars, etc., are very welcome.
Yes. And I just want to add something that is top of my mind, having heard now even more detail about what some of you are doing between what we heard and in the chat, is particularly with my leadership and learning program hat on here, as you are, so many of you, developing curriculum, if you are willing and able to share that with us and allow us to support you in putting it forward to the Center for Partnership Systems community as models that other people can build on, I think we could really catalyze a lot of wonderful learning work by just not always reinventing the wheel and being able to, as the center, be a place where people can find models that they can then adapt to various discipline areas, age groups, and settings. So I'd really love to see us begin to play that role more, as we have so many more people in the community who are out there developing materials and curriculum that deserve a much wider audience and deserve emulation by others who are doing similar work.
And I want to add to also use your social media to really, really spread the word.
Yeah.
So this has been just wonderful. And I again want to thank you all. Gratitude, that's it.
We are so deeply grateful for all of you who are present today, and all of you who are joining us on our replay, who registered but weren't able to attend. We are grateful for you too, and thank you for sharing your responses in the registration form that helped us get this lovely snapshot of who our leaders are right at this moment. And we know there are many more out there. And gratitude again to Riane and to Anne for being with us as well today. We'll stay on for just another moment so you can say some farewells to one another in the chat. But we'll close with just again, Anne, did you want to say a final word as well?
Oh, I think it's pretty much all been said, but thank you so much, Sarah, for facilitating a fabulous session. And thank you, Riane. I am so excited to read Nurturing Our Humanity, and everything that people have offered here, your ideas, particularly in the chat box, are so aligned with our thinking in terms of program development and outreach. So you are supporting us as we're supporting you, and that's the way it works. And we will be, supplying you with the complete chat box along with the video link of this session. And as Sarah said, there'll be many more people watching the replay of this session going forward. So that just, strengthens our partnership community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marta. I didn't know about this wonderful Wise Women's Directory. I'm learning something new from all of you. Well, I guess I'm going to say the last word, which is thank you all again, and a special thanks to Anne and to Sarah for making this possible. So bless you and onward in partnership.
Thank you. Take care.